What if I told you I could easily throw this 3D printed piece through a wall? Well, then I'd be a liar. In fact, I haven't been able to throw any printed piece through the wall, regardless of shape or size. But it does beg the question, how much damage can a 3D printed piece really do? Better yet, what does it take for a 3D printed piece to go through me? In today's video, I'll be attempting to get a piece of plastic up to lethal speeds and find out which projectile shape does the most damage. Okay, the goal is to somehow figure out how to turn this forbidden spaghetti into a projectile with enough energy to rekindle my relationship with my great-grandfather. So I brought in an expert at this sort of thing for some consultation and immediately noticed something. It wasn't made of plastic, it was small, and it was heavy. Naturally, I had some questions for why it was so lethal. Is it the smallness that makes it deadly? The heaviness? Would Danny DeVito be considered a lethal projectile should he become airborne? It turns out if you want to make something hurt real bad, it's all about that sweet, sweet KE, baby. The more K to the E you got, the more J to the ski you see. For the non-jive speakers watching, I basically need a combination of mass and velocity to make my 3D prints dangerous. Now I'm going to show you an equation here. It's okay, don't be scared, it can't hurt you. It can only tell you how to make something else hurt you. If I want a lot of power, I need to either increase mass or velocity. Velocity is more important because it's got a prestige rank next to it. A quick trip to the omnipotent Googs tells us that 85 joules worth of energy is the magic number for eternal sleep, so that's going to be our target. I needed a way to measure speed, so I bought this chromometer, and as a test I shot some darts through it. My measurements found that Nerf darts are only good for less than 1 SPF, so I wouldn't recommend using them for sun protection. Flipping the device around, however, told me that the darts were traveling about 60 FPS, which is only 40 miles per hour. With the dart weighing a gram, this means the average Nerf dart exerts about 0.16 joules upon impact, which is terrible. For comparison, when dropping the kids off at the pool experiences 0.223 joules upon child impact. Yes, I actually did the math on this. Next, I tried to measure the speed at which I was throwing the 3D print, and it's actually a lot harder to get it through the antennas than it looks.
126, let's go.
My best throw resulted in 37 FPS, which after finding the weight of the print was only 1.29 joules of power. That's about 1.5% of our 85 joule goal, with 75% of people skipping this part because I've said too many numbers. So in order to meet the goal, I needed to drastically increase speed, which is actually really hard to do without dropping the pipe. As for the whole 3D printed projectile thing, the plan is to construct an air cannon to do the throwing for me because I'm weak, and what's wrong with that? I started by cutting pipe, as they say, which will hold the pressurized air and make up the base of the cannon. After dry fitting the pieces and barely surviving an unprovoked attack, it was time for my favorite part of PVC assembly, the delicious chemicals. My favorite strategy is to breathe just enough in to where I'm not sure what day it is, and then simply hold my breath for the rest of the time. I finished assembling the base and then realized I was missing a few parts, so I grabbed my other air cannon from the ceiling to engage in some nefarious deeds. Now if you're wondering why I don't just use this cannon for the video, it's because it can only shoot carrots. I then stole the Hank valve and the pressure gauge from the carrot cannon, along with the trigger mechanism, which created a very strange sounding tuning fork. Subscribe. I then drilled and tapped holes in the new air cannon to place the confiscated pieces, but unexpectedly ran into my arch nemesis, Teflon tape. This tape is a cursed item because I should have a 50-50 chance of putting it on the right way, yet I somehow get it wrong every single time. The tape is the problem here, not me. Anyway, it was now time to test the air cannon to make sure it would even hold pressure, so I loaded a Nerf dart up, making sure to look directly down the barrel, and brought the pressure up to 20 psi.
2, 1.
With that success, I brought up the chronometer just for fun to see what speeds the Nerf dart was at. At 35 psi, the dart clocked in at 181 FPS, which is 123 miles per hour, and left a small dent in the wall. Okay, enough with the stupid foam dart. I printed 4 different types of projectiles to test out, including the Hear Ye, the Point, Snubby, and the Wedge. All of them were printed at 100% infill for maximum density. This star-studded crew will go up against the likes of Drywall, this Watermelon I've been meaning to get to but just haven't got around to it, and Au Naturel Irish spring water. Before all that though, I set up a firing range to measure how fast the printed pieces were going. I started with the musket ball, making sure to load it at exactly 18.3 feet per second, and brought the air cannon up to 20 psi.
1.
The ball got up to 195 FPS, and with a weight of 0.4 ounces, I now know my backstop is rated to less than 20 joules. This time I placed the blanket on top of some plywood, loaded the ball again, and fired at 40 psi.
3, 2, 1. No.
My lord.
That's through the... Look at that!
I couldn't believe that it went through the 6-inch plywood, especially with the blanket protecting it. But was it considered lethal? It fired at 291 fps, and after factoring in the weight carrying the 2, it was not lethal. In fact, it was just over half the energy required to be considered lethal, which is crazy because I personally am dying immediately if I get hit with that. I exchanged my inadequate backstop for a much beefier tabletop and brought the air cannon up to its max pressure of 80 psi for a final test with the ball.
1.
Now that may not have looked like much, but the impact force split the ball in 2 and would have wiped out any dinosaurs living on my table with the crater that it left. And at just under 250 miles per hour, the ball reached a maximum energy of 65 J, which means you can get hit in the head with this all day and be just fine. Next up was the point, weighing in at a hefty 0.7 ounces. I was afraid of the damage it would do, so I placed some drywall in its path, loaded it into the barrel, and pumped the cannon up to maximum PSI.
3, 2, 1.
The point had as much difficulty with drywall as white has sticking on rice, and the only damage it suffered was a broken tip. With a speed of 207 miles per hour, the point officially made just enough energy to put me on a watch list. Third up was Stubby, and I think you get the process by now. Weigh it, load it, shoot it.
1. Hey, it came back to me.
283 FPS at 1 ounce is the name, 105 joules is the game, making this piece of plastic more than definitely lethal. The final test before we get to the watermelons is the wedge, which is the heaviest at 1.4 ounces and the scariest looking of the 4.
1. Oh, okay.
The wedge was so hungry for more drywall it went spinning off into the corner of the garage, but thankfully I found no damage. The wedge hit number, unit of measurement for speed, and at number, unit of measurement but for weight, this projectile is the most deadly at 114 joules. But who cares about all that? Can it go through a watermelon or not? Well, we're about to find out. I've never seen a piece of plastic use a watermelon as a paintbrush before, but the musket ball made sure to get juicy melon all over the walls and ceiling of the garage. Since I really wanted to clean up more watermelon, I prepped the next doomed sphere and loaded a Stubby up. The plastic hit just the right spot to make me pucker up and made a giant hole on the exit, so I can now safely say I never want to be hit by these projectiles on any part of my body. They say Three's Company. I say throw in 2 gallons of colored water, an air cannon, and a plastic projectile, and I'll join your company. Whatever, just
3,
enjoy.
2, 1. Oh my lord.
The wedge almost made it through both gallons, but got stuck in the second one, which is a pretty incredible amount of power for a 3D printed piece. Thanks for watching, and don't do this at home, unless you want to. It was actually pretty fun.
It's enough cleanup for today.